welcome back to Livin On the Edge. This is your podcast for all things related to Kubernetes, developer tooling, API gateways, service mesh implementation, and more. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Living on the Edge podcast. My name is Kay James. I'm your host. I'm a customer enablement engineer here at Ambassador Labs, and I'm joined by Xavi. He's going to tell us a bit about the work they do with automation over at Voiceflow and some of the stuff they do with Telepresence. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me. Yeah, I'm Xavi. I'm based in Spain, but I'm working for a Canadian company. That company is called Voiceflow. And we are like Ambassador Labs users since a while. We were like early users of Telepresence. And I am also an Ambassador Labs advocate. So yeah, that's my journey with Ambassador Labs. So far, so good, and looking forward for the future endeavors, basically.
We love that. We love chatting with an advocate. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your role over at Voiceflow and what are you kind of working on over there and that type of stuff?
Yeah, sure. So I'm working here as a head of cloud, and basically what we are doing under my team is like managing everything that is related to the cloud, of course, but like starting from the cloud itself, like managing all the Terraform code, managing the CI/CD pipelines. We have created some cool stuff there that I will mention in a bit, thanks to Telepresence, by the way. What is we're doing? We're doing the BI and all the data warehousing, everything related to data modeling and all that stuff that is under my team as well. InfoSec, so compliances, and development environments where we are using Telepresence as well. So yeah, a small team, but doing a lot of things, and building a bunch of automations as well.
And how did you get into that type of field and environment? Like, was it something you were always interested in terms of like automation and that type of thing, or did it kind of fall into your lap and you just really enjoyed it?
Yeah, so when I started working, like 10 years ago or something like that, I was just like a classic Java developer, and then over and over time, I was changing my role in more like kind of integrations person, like more working on automations and make things like easier for the teams. And then when I joined my past company, that was Ericsson. We were like basically my team. We were basically doing a bunch of automations and a bunch of testing automation as well. Like in terms of pipeline, like not just creating the pipeline itself. Like let's say just not managing Jenkins files and all that stuff. Like everything in the development life cycle, uh, make it like fully automated with like creating CLIs, tools, dev tools. So yeah, and that was something that I really love. And yeah, when I joined Voiceflow, that it was what I was doing since the beginning, starting as a senior dev and then scaling and being promoted as a head of cloud. And yeah, in my free time, like what I usually do as well is like creating a bunch of CLIs, a bunch of developer tools, and a bunch of articles. I love to do like some technical writing, and yeah, like all the things related to dev tools, like how to do that, how to improve this development workflow. For instance, let's say like I don't know, like developing a world cloud function or AWS Lambda. How can improve, like the development workflow. So I usually write about those things because that is something that I love, and also in the Kubernetes world as well, because like that's something that is trending right now. Developer tools for the hybrid development. So yeah, that's kind of my journey and what I really like.
Yeah, I could tell that you really like helping people too. That's kind of the overall thing that I kind of got from that. And also, like, I noticed that you have a book as well. So it sounds like, teaching people and helping make their lives easier is kind of something that is important to you.
Yeah, totally, totally.
So, what are some of the challenges that your team is currently working on overcoming, and what solutions are you guys looking to implement?
Yeah, so right now, at Voiceflow, what you can see is basically that we have like voiceflow.com, which is, let's say, our public cloud. But when you get like the enterprise edition, that means that we deploy a private cloud, like full new tenant for you. And that means that we have to deploy a bunch of resources for that new customer. So that means that we are deploying like all the databases that we are using, which are a lot, like everything fully automated using, like Terraform, as I said, and then the Kubernetes clusters. So because we are using Kubernetes to deploy our application, and everything, like the data layers and the compute and all that stuff, that is currently we support AWS and GCP, and with the same infrastructure as code, with a toggle you can check what you want to deploy. And yeah, once we go to the Kubernetes phase, same using Terraform, we deploy like all our Helm charts, all our applications, kind of like, yeah, automated. And that is where we are seeing our one of major challenges, because like we are deploying applications into Kubernetes, and those applications need to be updated. So we developed something like Kill, which is like custom tool that just updates the Docker images in all the clusters. Currently, we are maintaining around 30 clusters, and each cluster has around 5 nodes. So it's quite a lot. That's only the Kubernetes side. If we talk about the databases, it's there are more and more nodes. So yeah, like we are not following any kind of like pattern, like a GitOps pattern or something like that. It's kind of hacky. So yeah, that is where our challenges are are coming up, and that what we are seeing. And also deploying our Helm charts using Terraform is creating like a bunch of boilerplate code, a bunch of code that is kind of useless, because if you are like deploying, for instance, an Argo application, you just need that CRD, that YAML, you deploy that, and then within the cluster is where the reconciliation happens. So that is one of our biggest challenge. We have successfully moved our one big piece of our infrastructure as code into a external configuration management system called Doppler, which is like AWS Secrets Manager, or Azure Secrets Manager, or Google Cloud Secrets Manager, or HashiCorp Vault, but with superpowers. Like it has a bunch of things super useful. Like for instance, you can create projects, you can create environments, and once you have your changes in one environment, you can promote those values into the other environments with just one click. like APIs, CLIs that you can use to automate things, and also you can sync your Doppler secrets with your Kubernetes secrets. So we have removed a bunch of code that was in Terraform into that system, but there's still missing the GitOps solution.
So, how do you guys go about trying to find solutions for some of these challenges? Like, is there a resource that you go straight to look for an answer, or maybe it's just like word of mouth?
Kind of both. Like we usually, that's something that I always try to, like empower my team, like going and attending to conferences, to local meetups, like to see real scenarios, like how the other companies or the other open source projects or whatever are doing the things, so people can learn. So yeah, and also reading a bunch of articles, for instance, on InfoQ, on DZone, also, for instance, the AWS blog, the Google Cloud blog. Those are really, really good, and they are like, I think those are good resources. But yeah, like basically is how we are doing that right now.
And what are some like automation best practices that you think everyone should be doing these days?
So I think there's one thing that should be mandatory, which is per team, like every single team, they should have like their CLI for their own like daily tasks, like even if you want to automate like how to do a commit, for instance, instead of writing git commit, just like writing a CLI that has like multiple steps, so you don't have to take care about these, even these small pieces, of course, a CLI to set up environments, a CLI to connect to somewhere, a CLI to run like this kind of test, like that is how we usually approach, and then you can reuse that CLI quite easily, or you should build that CLI in the way that you can reuse that in your pipeline. So there's the same code that you are running locally, or the same automations that you are running locally, you are gonna execute those in the CLI. So it is easier to reproduce and easier to debug, because we have seen a bunch of things, like the classic on my laptop works and the CI is not working, and yeah, with, for instance, using a common CLI, and also creating like good standards and good patterns, like when, for instance, when you are switching from one team to another, like there are automations that are already in place, like because they are standard for the like in the company, company wise, which is important as well. So yeah, these kind of things.
Yeah, that sounds like I agree. I think that's important too because then, developers can just focus on actually developing instead of the extra steps to make things work or to get things started and rolling and whatever. Which, in my head, that sounds like having that DevOps platform engineering, that type of team is kind of essential, right, for any company or whatever. So I'm curious, like, I feel like platform engineering is kind of one of those buzzwords that's been a thing lately. What is your perspective on, the rise of platform engineering and how that will evolve the whole DevOps, that role in that world?
Yeah, so I think platform engineering is something like quite important. Like in the past, like what we have seen is like teams doing their own, like platform engineering, or the DevOps teams doing their own platform engineering, but like creating like a separate team, doing just platform engineering, doing just developer tools internal developer tools for the current request from the developers. I think that's awesome, and that's the way to go. Because developers can just focus on their job, which is develop new stuff, and then when they need uh, automations, environment creations, these kind of things, you can request that to platform engineering. And also or the platform engineering, for instance, can leverage all these CLIs, or create like custom automations, for instance, like using Spotify Backstage, which is one of the most platform that are right now is being used as a platform engineering uh, platform. Because like it's kind of like, because with Spotify Backstage, and also with like with those CRDs, that you can create all the automations, all these kind of pipelines, and just throw that to a Kubernetes cluster, is an easy way to create these kind of things, and create like a quick graphic user interface with a bunch of plugins, like connecting that to your Jenkins, connecting that to your Cycle CI, to your GitHub Actions, to your Grafana, to your Argo CD, and then like deploy all these things by just creating those steps are is really great, I think. And yeah, like a good balance between like the platform engineering devs and the DevOps teams, and working not as a silos, like working together towards like one one main thing, which is releasing faster and with better quality. That's the way to go. That is how I usually approach the platform engineering, and like all the everything that is between the teams, in an engineering, uh, in a bigger engineering team, basically.
Cool. And obviously, earlier you mentioned that you guys use telepresence. I'm curious to know, how did you find telepresence, and then what was the journey of beginning to adopt and implementing that? What did that look like?
Yeah, so in the past, like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, what we were doing basically was, like probably as all the companies or most of the companies were doing, which is Docker Compose app and running everything locally. Um, that's great, but at certain point, when you have like a really big stack, it's becoming a problem, because the laptop, for instance, I mean, right now, like there are good laptops, but like the resources are limited. So and also you have to maintain all these local stacks and all that stuff. So we were at a certain time that if you want to run like Voiceflow locally, you need like 30 gigabytes of memory or something like that, just running the Docker Compose. So what we did was like, okay, let's try to do an hybrid approach, and let's start developing using this hybrid approach. So all the heavy things are running in the cloud, and then the developer, because that depends also how is the company like managed, but at least one team should touch like one or two microservices. So at the end, a developer should start working in one or two microservices and running like one or two process locally, which is good. Like those are just good. Like even if you are running like Node.js or Java that are consuming a lot, that should be good. So that is what we did. We were looking for like for solutions that were doing this kind of hybrid approach. We were fine some of them that were like for us too complex, that are like syncing local files with the cluster and like rebuilding the container every time you save. So it was like kind of annoying. And at the end, what we wanted is like something quick, like running something locally that is connected to the cluster. And that is what Telepresence does. You have like, everything in resolved, like all the DNS and everything that you have on your cluster, you have that on your laptop. So for instance, like if you want to connect to a Postgres database, to a Redis, to a Mongo, or even a queue, you can just run like Telepresence Connect with your namespace, because the solution that we took is basically we have a multi-tenant cluster, and each namespace is a small voice flow per developer. So just running Telepresence Connect with the namespace of that developer, you can connect to those resources and the other services that are deployed there and are not running locally, because you are developing just one or two services, which is great. So, and then at the end, we went from 30 gigabytes running locally to like 100 or 200 megabytes running locally, which is awesome, and it's super fast. So yeah, that's our telepresence journey. Is For us is like the simplest tool to develop, or to have like that this hybrid approach, of developing using Kubernetes. And I think that should be the main, or like the trend, like during upcoming years, and start using like Docker Compose and these kind of things with local stack, just running everything in a Kubernetes cluster, because at the end it's not that expensive, to be honest. And also, I don't know, like you can even run like a local cluster and use telepresence as well. So yeah, these kind of things.
So, what was the response from the actual developers who were, and ended up using telepresence? Like, were they excited? Was there like a learning curve, or what was their actual reaction to adopting this?
Yeah, so I think we did it properly, because instead of like bringing to them the telepresence CLI and all the commands and everything, what we developed was like an internal tool called VF CLI, like Voiceflow CLI. And we wrap like all the telepresence commands, and like we created also like yarn, like an npm interface that is common to all the services, all the Node.js services, and the BFCLI interacts with that, and that is what is calling like telepresence, and with like that big command that is running the intercept. So basically, at the end, what we did is basically you are just a developer. You can create your development environment with running a BFCLI m create and then your dev name. It will create your environment with the telepresence auto inject. Like the traffic agents are auto injected in those services. And then once that is done, you just need to run yarn local in the service that you want to develop, and that's it. So that's why I am emphasizing like the importance of like writing automations, creating standards across the engineering team, because building things like this makes you, or makes your developers life easier, and they are like happier, because the learning curve was literally nothing, you know.
Yeah, that sounds very convenient. From like a management of the CLI implementation that you guys have, how do you guys manage like upgrading telepresence, or have you had to do that or anything like that?
Yeah, so what we usually do is basically the telepresence version is managed as well with the BFCLI. So when we want to upgrade Telepresence, the Telepresence version, the Telepresence version itself in the cluster is managed by Terraform. So we just bump the version and boom, we upgrade the Helm chart and that's it. And then we release a new version of the BFCLI. So the developers, when they are using Telepresence again, the new Telepresence version, uh, when they are using the BFCLI, the new Telepresence version is being downloaded and everything is working fine.
Cool. And are there any other new tools that you found recently that you're excited about?
Well, we are on our journey of like GitOps, so Argo CD 100%, and Spotify Backstage. That's something that we want to include in our tech stack, because yeah, like for instance with Spotify Backstage, we want to have like a graphic user interface that we can develop to execute at the end like BFCLI commands. For instance, like if anyone can, if someone wants to create like I don't know, like a review environment or a development environment, instead of running the CLI, you can go to Spotify Backstage and check that, like and entering all the information that you want and click a button, and that's it. This is more for like stakeholders, like product managers and all these kind of things. Because yeah, with the BFCLI, you can not only create development environments, you can create like review environments, you can create test environment. So that's the idea. And then the main goal is to fully automate the new the new voice flow, like the whole new private cloud. So do that again with Spotify Backstage, like when we close a deal, person from the sales teams goes there and just enter the metadata needed, and then boom, like, because right now, for instance, we are deploying around like 500 or 600 cloud resources per cloud. So if you can just add the required metadata, which is, to be honest, is not a lot, on Spotify Backstage, then boom, everything is good. And with Argo CD, you can see that as well within Spotify Backstage, because it has some really cool plugins. So yeah, that's our goal for 2024.
Cool. And I guess kind of in the same vein as that, it's New Year. Is there any, doesn't necessarily have to be a Kubernetes thing, but is there anything exciting that you're looking at in tech that you're excited about in this new year?
Well, everything related to like LLMs. I think last year was the LLM explosion, and this year is gonna be like the kind of like maturity or of this world. So yeah, we will see how that goes. I'm excited. And yeah, like there were a lot of startups that kick off, like on top of LLMs solutions and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm quite curious about these things. So yeah, we'll see.
Cool. So to close things off, is there anything that you would like to promote or shout out before we sign off today?
Well, I mean, you guys can check my blog. Is shabidob.me. So if you go there, you can check like all the articles, my books, also my talks, like everything. I have a focus more on conversational AI, but you will find some Kubernetes things and some telepresence stuff. And yeah,